Here we go. Welcome again, everyone. This is AI, Grids and Data, Building Europe's Next Energy System. We have an amazing lineup of speakers here and a very important critical topic to discuss for the next 30 minutes or so. So just quickly give you an overview of why it matters to discuss AI, grids and data within the context of Masters of Digital 2026. Europe's energy system is entering a decisive phase. Electrification, renewables, AI, they're all converging at unprecedented speed. And they obviously raise the bar for how efficiently Europe's energy grids must perform. So we're going to talk a lot about that, how to make that happen. And the issue has been high on the Commission's agenda, but obviously we will get to discuss that as well. But the energy obstacles risk slowing both the digital and green transitions that depend on it. So a couple of facts and recommendations by Digital Europe. In many member states today, it takes 7 to 10 years to connect a grid, to connect a new data center to the grid. So Digital Europe has called for setting clear grid connection rules to prioritize projects which really match the needs of the electricity system instead of simply connecting to the grid, whoever applies first. And the second fact that is important within the context of this conversation that we're about to have, it is about smart digital tools and how they can almost double how much electricity the grid can carry, while making upgrades 35% cheaper by 2040. So another recommendation by Digital Europe regarding AI for energy is that it will be helpful to better rewarding grid operators for using smart digital solutions matters a lot to maximize efficiency. So the core question today ahead of us is very simple. Can Europe modernize its grids fast enough to power data centers and AI, and use AI fast enough to modernize its grids? So that is our question for the panel. Please join me in welcoming to this panel our distinguished speakers. I will very quickly introduce them. Ms. Niamh Gallagher, Country Lead for AWS Ireland and EMEA Director for Infrastructure and Public Policy. Mr. Karel Havlíček, I practiced this yesterday, Minister. Yeah. Deputy Prime...
famous basketball player in America.
There we go. See, I had prior knowledge of that. Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Industry and Trade for the Czech Republic, welcome. Ms. Renata Nicolai, Deputy Director General of DG Connect at the European Commission, welcome. Glad to have you here too. Mr. Bruno Tobag, Member of the European Parliament, welcome, it's wonderful to have you here. And Mr. Peter Wekesser, Chief Digital Officer of Schneider Electric and President of Digital Europe. So you're our host in a way today. Thank you all for being here. Very quickly, I'll explain our format to you. We have 2 rounds. The first round is energy for AI, and the second round is AI for energy. Obviously, because they're all interlinked, so we have to go into detail about why we have that set up. Energy for AI is about how Europe can meet the AI electricity demand, and AI for energy is about how Europe can make best use of its digital tools and AI to improve energy efficiency. My last housekeeping note, I promise we'll start, is about our live poll. Can I just see it on the video wall for a second? AV team, the geniuses behind making all of this happen. Yes. So if you scan that QR code, you're going to get $1 million question. And we would love for you to share your answers with us, because I will go back to it at the end of the panel to share the results with you. The question is, it's rather a scenario. It is 2030. Europe either mastered the AI and energy transition or it did not. What made the difference? 3 possible scenarios here. We built infrastructure at record speed. We rewired the grid with digital and AI at its core. We aligned politics, regulators, and industry behind one clear plan. Please go ahead and vote. I'll come back to it at the end of the panel. All right. That being said, energy for AI, first round, and I'll start with the hard reality. AI runs on algorithms, yes, but it also runs on electricity. So Europe's data demand is also a rising fact one important hard fact ahead of us as well. AI factories need power. So before we talk about leadership in AI and the policy aspect of it and how to regulate all of that, we need to ask, can we power it and how? I would like to start with the industry perspective on this and go to Ms. Niamh Gallagher and then to you, Peter Wekesser, and ask you, how urgent is the energy supply challenge for AI when you look at the picture across Europe? And what would you like the Cloud and AI Development Act to prioritize? To details of which we'll get to later on with Renate. Niamh Gallagher, Peter Wekesser. If possible, if we could close the door because it could get a little distracting. Go ahead, please.
First of all, thank you for the opportunity to be part of this conversation. And what's super, I suppose, is seeing a conversation at Digital Europe that is so focused on energy issues. Because as you can see from my job title, and my team is focused on energy and infrastructure around Europe, where Amazon Web Services is building and operating data centres. We have individuals who are supporting that with national governments, and then a small team in Brussels working facing the European Commission to try to make sure, I suppose, that Europe is meeting those goals of being competitiveness and making sure that we can invest, continue to invest here in the way that we have done so successfully over time. But to do that, I think we need a couple of things, right? We need to get a couple of things right. And yes, they are in the AI Cloud and Development Act, but actually I think they go beyond that, right? I would say three. I think simplifying and streamlining permitting is absolutely fundamental. And I know simplification is the buzzword in every room across the last number of years, but really this would make an enormous difference. The second is modernising grid investment and connection policies. And the third is establishing a really robust data centre rating scheme for clarity and certainty. And maybe just to say sort of a little bit about each one briefly, right? Because we've some experience on the ground. You asked for the industry perspective of each, and that's across various member states. So on permitting, there are some countries and some regions within countries who are doing a really excellent job on streamlining. I would call out the region of Aragon in Spain, where we've got a big infrastructure and we lean on the PIGA special projects of special interest framework. In France, there's another fast track scheme that is very much linked to meeting environmental standards. But I think what we need as Europe as a whole is not a situation where companies are looking for the best place to invest based on sort of how straightforward the permitting system is, but rather, and the Cloud and AI Infrastructure Development Act can do that by saying this is the structure that Europe at large applies. So I think there's a real opportunity there to have really key things. A single permitting authority, almost like a kind of one-stop shop, with coordinating the process so that companies like ours don't have to go to multiple entities as they're getting permits. Parallel process, environmental, building, planning permits. If they run in parallel rather than one after the other, we save a lot of time. It's not compounded. At the moment, that certainly doesn't happen everywhere. Clear binding maximum timelines. And they actually help the authorities on the other side as well as us, because they bring clarity and early engagement with developers and with authorities. Permitting, given the nature of my job, focused on infrastructure for 8 years with Amazon, is my favourite topic. So I won't go into as much detail on connection policies, but just to say that the message is sort of similar. The clarity and the timing, and I know the grids package commits to a 1-year permitting timeline for grid connections. That would make a world of difference. At the moment, we navigate multiple policies in multiple countries. I think that would really, really help. And on the data centre rating scheme, which we know is forthcoming, there's a real opportunity actually in the ability to tell a clear and common story across operators of AI data center infrastructure about how efficiently the facility uses energy, how responsibly it manages its water, and whether it's investing in renewable energy. And those are the metrics that the Commission has established that will be part of this rating scheme. I think it's successful depend on two things: that it has a really clear implementation handbook, so that it's applied sort of in the same way across member states, and that there's a scoring mechanism that makes it straightforward to compare, because the metrics on their own, lots of them don't mean so much. So I think, to sort of be successful as Europe, and I'm a European, I feel strongly about this personally, in this really competitive environment for AI infrastructure, I think those are the three things we need to sort out: our permitting, our grid connections, and get the data centre rating scheme right.
Those are the priorities. Those should be the priorities. Thank you, Neil. We'll come back to those. Our other speakers will have a lot to say on those too. But continuing on with the industry perspective, well, I know in this case, Peter Wekesser, with you, it will be the industry perspective plus the Digital Europe hat that you have. So the question itself will reflect the two hats you're wearing today on this panel. It will be about the intersection of those two roles, which is then about the European approach. What should define a European approach to building AI data centers in a way they are competitive, they're sustainable, they're well integrated into the local energy system? Obviously, your company plays a very important role in this sector, but you also have the Digital Europe hat. So what would your response be considering both of those angles?
Yeah, I find actually this topic fascinating, right? And I like the framing of this session that we talk about energy AI and AI for energy, because these two topics are joined by the hip, right? You can't separate these two topics. And actually, we already had a meeting today in the morning, the Energy Council of Digital Europe, where this was kind of core of the discussion as well. Maybe I want to start with a couple of facts for Europe. The energy consumption of data centers in Europe today is only a single-digit number. It's 3 to 4% today, but the energy consumption of AI, which at the end is data centers, is the by far fastest growing. Now, if you look at the global landscape, then this growth is fastest in North America. So Europe is behind. Europe is even behind Asia in that growth. So we clearly see this significantly increased demand for energy. Now, data centers or AI is only one angle to that, but the fastest growing, so contributing to that energy demand at the highest level. So what does that mean for Europe? We certainly need to build out our energy landscape for the future. And also a discussion that we already had today in the morning. The only way to provide cost-competitive energy is electrification. So we need to have a very focused approach to electrification, which is renewables, that is nuclear potentially, and other sources. And so we need to double down also on the generation of energy. The second big topic, which is the most limiting factor to the build out of all of our data center customers, and I'm sure Amazon can confirm that, is access to energy. Access to energy is defining where data centers are being built. Now in Europe, and this is maybe my Digital Europe hat, we certainly do not want to make the mistake that we have done in other technology areas, that we want to fall behind in the build out of the AI factories of the future, but we want to make sure that Europe stays competitive in this probably critical technology for all industries and sectors. So when we want to attract data centers in Europe and make them competitive in Europe, we need to be able to supply secure and competitive energy to these data centers. This requires, again, build out of the generation, but it also requires build out of the grid infrastructure that we have. And this build out of the grid infrastructure has two dimensions. It's the physical build out of the grid, which is we need more copper in the ground. And this comes, of course, with a lot of permitting and everything. Can we build this transmission and distribution grids? But there is another angle which probably doesn't have enough attention in all the discussions. Making our grid intelligent for this new energy landscape. And that new energy landscape has not only very few power plants, it has really distributed power generation with lots of renewables, with lots of battery storage in the future in the grid. That requires us to make this grid more intelligent. So as we talk about the security and the competitiveness of our energy supply for data centers and all the other consumers, it will be very important that we invest into the grid and make the grid more intelligent. We know from practical experience in Schneider, wearing my Schneider hat for a second, if we do smart grid management, if we do demand response, we can utilize the existing grid infrastructure 20 to 40% better if we invest into these smart ways of managing the grid infrastructure. And this has also the fastest and best return on invest. And the good news is it doesn't need a lot of permitting, right? Because it doesn't require that we dig up the ground and put new cables into the ground.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic. So we're now hearing from our panel that this isn't just about megawatt or infrastructure, but it's about policy. It's about aligning on policy priorities and about rules, speed, removing friction, which is why I'd like to now turn towards that angle now to talk about policy, which brings me to ask Ms. Renata Nicolai for the Commission's perspective on this. It is high on the Commission's agenda. We briefly mentioned it at the opening. And I'd like to ask you specifically about the Cloud and AI Development Act. And if you could tell us more about what measures are there in it that will enable the expansion of data centers across Europe, given these sensitivities and urgent priorities.
Yeah, thank you very much. Indeed, I think we've heard a lot about, the energy part that is already quite developed with the smart grid kind of, package that is already out there. And here on this panel, energy meets digitalization.
Right.
And the CADA that we are working on at the moment and that we are planning to bring out around mid-April as part of the tech sovereignty package that we are working on, also in the context of CHIPS Act 2 and open source strategy, will be an important contribution to that. Because as we just heard, there will be a higher demand for data centers. We have to catch up on that. And I think here the CADA can bring some relief in the sense of immediately putting us on the right track for that. Instead of having a fragmented approach to it with permitting structures that differ, with kind of criteria that are set at a national level, to have a harmonized kind of a clear strategic approach on the data centers, because they are part of our AI kind of, action plan to really move ahead on AI solution in all sectors. That's why in Apply AI, we have the energy sector as one of the strategic sectors highlighted that we want to develop further. And here, I think CADA can be an important contribution to that. We can build on the energy efficiency work that has been done in the past, so we can immediately kind of design these data centers in a future-oriented way, so that they are actually bringing in the optimization, the energy efficiency gains that we want, and that we also give an incentive in all member states at the same time to move in this direction instead of experimenting. So it will be that approach. We are still in discussions, so the final kind of draft is not yet ready, but I think that's the direction of travel, to really build on the needs assessment, on what has been done on the energy side, and bring that from the digitalization side together.
Right. So that means alignment is obviously very important, and you are in discussion still about this. And I would like to take the opportunity to maybe unpack that angle a bit more about what kind of discussions are taking place, which is why I'd like to turn to the politicians on the panel and to Minister Havlicek. I'd like to start with you and ask you, for Europe to attract AI infrastructure, what needs to be done, right? What needs to be done? What concrete steps can be taken together with member states, the Commission, and the Parliament to align on the agenda? What do you think is necessary there?
Thank you, and thank you very much for the invitation. It's a great event, and as you know, the Czech Republic is an amazing country, but it's not a country of the past. It's not a country of the Charles Bridge and Great Beer. It's a country for the future. In Czech Republic, we are creating the great environment for artificial intelligence, for let's say it's the digitization and so on. And I'm really proud of my team here on this great event. I thought that I'm coming here and I will be alone here. 10 participants, 10 visitors from the Czech Republic. They are the creators of the future. And you are the creator of the future. Why? Because for private sector, new technologies, that's the engine of the economic growth. And the politicians like me, my role is to create environment for you, and you will generate the profits. Then we will pay the taxes, we will collect the taxes, we'll invest into the AI, into the defense, or I don't know, for infrastructure. And of course, let's say the objective of the European Union is to generate the added value. Added value can generate only if you have, let's say, the low costs, or if you are, let's say, extremely good in innovation, research, innovation. And the new technologies like AI, it's absolutely, let's say, is the fundament to be successful right now. And definitely we have to understand that we are losing the competitiveness as a Europe. We are losing competitiveness. And why we are losing competitiveness? Because of the energy prices, because the energies, they are closely connected to the new technologies. They are extremely expensive in Europe. That's a reality. And it's not so that energy, it's, let's say, is the basis only for a heavy industry, or let's say, is the energy intensive industry. It's not so. It's extremely important for AI. We would like in Czech Republic to invest for AI gigafactory. It's closely connected to the price of the energies. We are collaborating with our friends from Poland, but definitely if you are paying 4 or 5 times higher prices of electricity than in America, it's really not, let's say, it's the good condition. So this one we have to understand. It's closely connected, and I have here in Brussels maybe 10 meetings, yesterday and today, and 90% of these meetings, they are focused on the energy prices. I'm trying to persuade, well, as the European Commission, persuade the other countries that we have to change the system of the for emission allowance as a emission trading systems. That's the first steps what we have to do, and then we can expect that the environment will be let's say, prepared for the new technologies and also for the growth of the business sector. And that's the fundamental what I have to say. The other is how we will, let's say, say the fights against the Chinese. Well, because you mentioned this in China, it's really the environment so interesting that they are really beating the Europe. There are 25 years ago, the GDP share of the Europe was at the same level like in America, 26-27%. Right now, for 16%. In America, still the same. And Chinese, they had a 3%. Right now, they've got a 16%. They are beating us, and they are beating us by the new technologies as the AI, by the great, let's say, the research and innovation activities, and the Americans, they are beating us by the low prices of the energies and special incentives. And we have to understand it, and then we have to let's say the new Europe, which is based on young people, on the startups, create the environment for startups, which is based on innovation, based on AI, based on, let's say, the digital equipments, digital tools. That's the role of the politicians, and we have to create the environment for you, and you have to achieve the goals.
Thank you very much. If you allow me, because Niamh has to leave soon, I would like to just turn to you, Ms. Niamh Gallagher, to get your perspective on how AI can transform Europe's grids, because then we will have to say goodbye to you. And Mr. Bruno Tabak, if you would excuse me, because I have to now switch things a little bit, but you will have extra time to respond for the questions I have for you on this round. But very quickly,
I truly apologise.
I will keep my promise for sure. But Niamh Gallagher, please.
Oh, yes. Well, I saw our MEP colleague speak on this topic recently, so it will be interesting, I'm sure, and my apologies. No, I would just like to share, I think, just one really practical example, actually, rather than take too much time, of where I have seen this through one of our customers, Iberdrola, which is the Spanish multinational utility, using AI to really drive a difference, an impact in grids and in energy. And I think when I was thinking about this and preparing, energy is so perfect and grids to be able to see the impact of AI, because the amount of data that needs to be taken in and analysed is beyond the ability of the human brain, right? It is so complex and it is so different, and that's why bringing in all these data points, analysing them, can be so impactful. So super quickly, Iberdrola in particular is using our AWS machine learning to do a couple of different things, right? And I would describe it as a total energy transformation rather than just let's kind of fix this piece or this piece. And they have managed, through real-time asset management, predictive maintenance and power demand forecasts to bring costs down for their customers by 10 to 30%. So they're actually putting money back in the pockets. But what does it actually mean? Like how are they kind of managing this? They can see in advance when do different turbines need to be repaired. They can get in early. They can avoid things breaking. They can start to operate much more efficiently because they can see all in front of them when things are going to happen rather than waiting for them to happen and fixing them. So that's the first thing. They're using it in their own space and they're kind of making savings. But they're also applying it to energy planning. So they're looking at huge tons of data in terms of past use of energy amongst their customers, how their various renewables investments have been performing, weather data, supply and demand that they have seen over the years, and they're now being able to predict much more accurately what is needed, where and when. So they have this balancing function, which is allowing them again to be more efficient. All of this contributes to much better grid management, right? Because the power is going to the right place at the right time and being used effectively. A better service for them and bringing prices down for their customers. But I think if I could just name one challenge, I had a couple of challenges, but just briefly, one challenge I think is the AI expertise and the deep AI knowledge and expertise required within utilities and within grid operators to be able to do this, because this is a whole new world. And I think that is where companies like ours can play a role, because we've been doing AI for many years. Now everybody's talking about it, and we've got services and so on where we engage and we work with these customers very practically, but there's a bigger piece which is about upskilling at large in those entities so that this becomes business as usual.
Fantastic. Thank you, Ms. Niamh Gallagher. I know you have to leave, and please feel free to do so now. It's exactly 44 past, as I promised. But I'd like to turn to Mr. Bruno Talbach now, who will have more time now to respond to the questions because Niamh's leaving.
Never say that to a member of parliament.
To a politician. I know, but we turn into pumpkins at a certain time because the panel ends, so we'll have to do our best, given the amount of time we have. But back to you with the same question I had for Mr. Havlicek. What member states, the Commission and the Parliament can do together to align on policies that matter for Europe as a whole, to align industrial, energy and digital policies. Yeah. Ms. Niamh Gallagher says it's a whole new world. So I guess that preparation and alignment is important to prepare for that whole new world. What is your take?
Well, the first thing we need to do is indeed accept and realize that it is a whole new world. One in which I'm very grateful as a Belgian that the Czech Republic doesn't want to be known for good beers anymore. We'll take care of it. We have it under control. But on the other hand, when I hear discussions on energy prices and on competitiveness and on industry, I think we do have to realize that we are and accept that we are indeed in a whole new world where indeed electrification, and I agree with you, is our only way towards competitiveness. If you look at the prices in Europe today, and we checked it during the previous panel, I mentioned it because I checked it especially, electricity prices today, average in Spain on this very day, is around about 27 euros per megawatt hour. In Germany, there's 76 euros per megawatt hour. There's a very simple direct correlation. If you look at the electricity prices in Europe, the higher the integration of renewables is in the national system, the lower the electricity price is. Period. Fact. Very simple. And so I'm getting a bit fed up with this discussion on ETS, which is basically trying to keep something alive from the past rather than invest in that future generation. If you want to be able, and we will need to do it in some countries, to subsidize the difference between those 27 and those 70 euros per megawatt hour, you'll need revenues. The only place those revenues will come from is from an ETS system, because taxpayers simply do not have enough money to indefinitely, permanently, forever keep subsidizing too high electricity prices because our system is based on premises from the past. Gas is cheaper in the United States. It will always be cheaper in the United States, and just by transporting it to Europe, it will become more expensive by nature. This is a simple fact. It's simple maths. And so if you're dependent on imported gas, you're not going to be here in 10 or 15 years. Very simple. That is the new reality we need to accept. And we do not need to invest in keeping the dinosaurs alive. We need to invest in building the future. And data centers will be part of that future. They will not be the only part. Let's also not get blindly. I'm very sorry if I don't want to be spitting in the soup in digital Europe here. Data centers and AI are part of our future and are a necessary part of our future, but it is not the only future electricity and energy consumer in Europe. And we need to find a place where everybody fits in. If we want to integrate renewables, if we want to integrate electrification, if you want to integrate industrial heat pumps and data centers, we will need to look at our grids in a different way. AI can help, and that's the bit where data analysis, AI systems, and new pricing mechanisms can work. But there's also a bit at the start when you look at. I mentioned a very good quote from a very nice American president. Americans used to be good at electing nice presidents, which is when you look at as a data center, don't just ask what the grid can do for you. Ask what you can do for the grid. And that is not just providing inference mechanisms and compute time. It is also, for example, offering flexibility, frequency response to the grid operators, which will make it a lot easier to fit in more data centers as consumers, because flexible consumers will be a lot better placed and a lot easier to connect and a lot more welcome on those future interconnected grids that will have both on the side of the consumers and on the side of the producers more flexibility. The more flexible you can be and the broader the services you can provide by being more than just a client and an off-taker, the easier it will be to fit in more. And then we can probably also use indeed the new AI possibilities to calculate and decide where it is the best place to do it, how we can do it as fast as possible, how we can do it as well as possible. But it starts from being a nice kind of customer for the grid operators, because really we need that. Our grids need a huge investment. They need huge reinforcement. They need new ways of being operated in a flexible way and being financed for that flexibility. But that comes from both sides of the equation. It's not the time when you could just connect your plug and be a customer. I think especially at the scale where we are rolling out data centers, both for cloud service and for AI, doesn't make that possible anymore. The system will need to change because the world is changing if we want to be competitive.
All right. So this brings us to actually the second part of the conversation, which is AI for energy. We have established already that energy is needed for AI, and AI can be deployed well to make energy more efficient. I would like to again do a similar round and go to Peter Wekesser, who has been nodding, by the way, the whole time when Mr. Bruno Tobak was commenting also about the prices, maybe that aspect. If you'd like to comment on that. And also the first question for this round is what I had for Ms. Niamh Gallagher, which is how can AI transform Europe's grids and how can it be deployed at scale to be helpful?
Let me first say you have been observing well, so I very much agree with what Bruno said. And maybe a final comment on what's happening in the energy landscape. We have to move to an all-electric energy landscape. It will take a few years. All-electric means distributed power generation with lots of renewables, an intelligent grid, lots of battery storage in this grid. The data centers of the future will also be an active element of that grid that can help with demand response. So the new energy landscape will be totally different. Instead of general power generation transmission and a not intelligent distribution grid, it will be a very intelligent grid with lots of decentralized power generation and demand management. I want to also use a quote here, right? As we move into this new energy landscape, we need to make sure that we don't protect the past from the future, but we protect the future from the past. And this is still an issue that we have, right? We still have incentive mechanisms which are 50 years old that need to change in this. So, but I want to close on the energy landscape now. But it was important to describe that this is different. Now, why does AI play a major role in managing this new energy landscape? If you imagine this landscape of millions of energy generation capabilities. Every home has solar on its rooftop. There are wind turbines all over the place. Every industrial plant has their power generation capabilities. So we have, and we call this at Schneider a prosumer concept. So everybody is a producer of energy and a consumer of energy as well. Now, lots of this energy consumption and production has to be flexible because it depends on wind, on sunshine, on times of the day, on the season of the year. We need to have the capability to manage all these production and consumption entities in a very intelligent way. This is the most complex system that will be created by mankind. And all of these energy producers and consumers will produce data. They will all produce forecasts. So how much energy will my rooftop solar produce in the next hours, in the next couple of days? How much energy will the wind turbine produce? But there's also consumption forecast. So how much energy will a home need in the next hours because I maybe want to charge my car or not charge my car. So the industrial consumers will have to provide the same forecasts. Now, we need to be able to collect all that data, and the grid operator needs that data, needs to aggregate that data and drive intelligent conclusions from that data. So when is it best to charge the car, to use the fleet of cars as the massive battery storage? When do you use the energy in these batteries to fill in power production gaps because there's not enough sunshine right now? So, and this is a real-time problem that can only be solved by AI in the future.
Collection and processing of data that's necessary
it's collection
for efficiency, basically.
and processing and data and driving the real-time conclusions, which is at the end flexibility and demand-side management. So this is why AI and the build-out of the electrical infrastructure has to go hand in hand.
Right. Okay. I know that we are very ambitious at Digital Europe this year. We have massive issues which have multiple angles to them, but we have very limited time, which is why I will have to rush a lot. And I apologize to my panelists and also to the audience because I have to make sure that we cover as much ground as possible given the amount of time we have. But thank you, Peter Weckesser, also for laying out how AI can be useful in making the grids more efficient. I want to turn to Ms. Renata Nicolai to ask more about how the legislation that the Commission has been working on is serving that purpose, specifically the grids package and also the strategic roadmap on AI and digitalization for the energy sector. How can the roadmap facilitate the digitalization of grids and make it more efficient in the way Peter Weckesser has described? And then I will move to Minister Havlicek.
Right. I think this is actually, what Peter described is not so much an issue of regulation. I think here it's really about bringing the different pieces together. And that will also be in the roadmap. Also that is being developed and will come out with the tech sovereignty package together. But the idea is really that AI will kind of touch all sectors, also the energy sector, can kind of make a huge contribution for optimization, prediction, really kind of aligning everything on demand purposes. In order to do that, you need to have an infrastructure together. So I come back to the AI factories where that can actually play a role. So if you imagine an AI factory with a focus on energy, and here you would kind of, bring in our idea of having actually a data lab for AI, because it's all important. We will never have AI innovation kind of capacity if we don't get the access to the data. Here we still have to, make some steps, because even though we have the Data Act, even though we have said we want to create a data market in the European Union because that is such a rich material, there are still some temptations to really share the data, to really give access to the data. And I think maybe that secure environment to really have a sectorial context, a little bit like what we did in the health kind of space, where I think we already advanced, to use now the emergency of that kind of necessity to advance on smart grids and energy, for the future, to really kind of develop also energy data spaces or labs for, energy AI. but it's really important that we have secure spaces where data can be brought in so that AI models can be run on this data, because otherwise we will never have that solution that you want, so that we can predict better, that we can build digital twins, so that we optimize. So there are still some kind of, steps to be taken. So what will come from the strategic roadmap and combined with this broader initiative of the AI continent and apply AI is actually fill that with life. So
Right.
very concrete steps to actually use the AI factories, bring in the data kind of labs so that we create de facto an energy data space where everybody feels secure to simply share that data so that it can be optimized for AI solutions.
Thank you. We have about 2 minutes, but I might request another minute so that we can wrap up properly. Minister Havlicek, your response, and then to Bruno Tolbach about how the Parliament can perhaps play a role in pushing for smarter grids. You, sir, and then
Well,
Tolbach.
so you can say that there is no modern system of energy without AI. I fully understand it. I fully agree with what you said as about the flexibility and renewables and smart grids. That's great. That's perfect. But we are discussing how it will be in 15, 20 years, because right now in a position that they are, let's say, the old energy sources. In the Czech Republic, we are producing extremely cheap energy from nuclear sources. But in Czech Republic, there's one of the highest priced of energy. Why? Because the price is determining by so-called last source on the Central European market, as an energy Central European Common Market, and is determining by the German gas sources. Why? The gas is not so expensive. The problem is emission allowance. If the emission allowance costs 70, 80, 90 euro per ton, it's 5 times higher than in America and 10 times like in China. We have no chance. Well, that's reality. So we have to go step by step. The future of the energy is based on nuclear energy and renewables. But the question is how we'll manage let's say the environment in the next 10, 15, 20 years. Of course, we are reducing the coal, but let's discuss about the Germany. Well, 5, 6 years ago, for German Wirtschaftsminister, they said, "Me, Karel, you have no chance with the nuclear energy. This is the past. This is the history." Right now, new Wirtschaftsminister of Germany, Katharina, is expressing that it was a mistake. The nuclear energy is the energy of the future, and they are starting to collaborate with us at the level of small modular reactors. So that's what I want to say. Let's invest into the new technologies, but we have to go step by step, because we are losing competitiveness due to high prices of energy. And emission allowance is one of the causes.
Thank you. The political aspect of this is amazing for a journalist. I would love to ask you more about that, but I will have to move very quickly to Bruno Tolbach too, so that we can wrap up on time. Your response on how to use AI better to make the grids more efficient and the Parliament's role in that.
The Parliament's role, I think, first of all, how can we use it? I think it's been explained better than I can do it by the two other members of this panel. So I totally agree. There is a huge opportunity. There are huge possibilities, and we would be silly not to use them in full. What can the Parliament do? I think that one of the things we do need to do is make sure that when we are talking about data and use, AI only works because of the input. People need to be reassured about the security of their information, their privacy, if we want to guarantee that input. I don't want someone to individually look at my house without my permission or without any kind of. So I think the data security worries, even if they are overblown or even if they are too much exaggerated, we still need to address them and reassure people if you want this to work. I think that's one of the things that the Parliament will need to. It's the same discussion with the TSOs. They are suppliers of data. They need to be willing to share that data. And of course, they play a double role in that they are system operators operating a public utility, at the same time, in many cases, commercial parties. I have no problem with someone making a profit from a public utility. I do have a problem with someone blocking for commercial reasons improvement of that public utility to drive and driving down the cost. So we need to address that. And second or third and finally, this is not a discussion for within 15 years. It is something we are doing right now. I have no religion in production. I look at prices. I know there is one in Europe, not in the EU, but in Europe there is one actual physical project of an SMR being prepared and being contracted. It will be ready in 2035 and it will cost about $6 billion per gigawatt hour. I know that we're building for the next year 20 gigawatt hours of wind turbines at a price of 2 billion per gigawatt. This is not in 15 years, it's happening now. And it is something that we can produce and accelerate today. Not in 15 years, not in maybe 20 years at a price we don't know, it is today. And so we're looking at 15 years. We have nuclear power in Belgium. We have even extended the lifespan of nuclear power in Belgium. But if we're building something tomorrow it's going to be a wind turbine and it's not going to be an SMR because there is no SMR available tomorrow. And we need to solve our competitiveness problem not in 15 years, but tomorrow. Or even better, yesterday.
One last round, super blizzard fast last round, which is Europe's next energy system. The priority should be complete the sentence. Let's do one last round like this. With you, Peter Rekesser, start and then go this way. When building Europe's next energy system, our priority should be what? Share one thought with us.
Speed and deploying the technologies that exist now.
Okay. Werner Tabak.
Agree with that and look at bringing down the system cost, not the cost of individual bits of it.
Got it.
Invest into the new sources, the renewables, the nuclear sources, but at the same time, the balance, the sources from the point of view of the grids.
Ms. Nicolai.
Built-in digitalization and security by design.
Thank you very much. Can we see the poll results very quickly on the video wall, please? Let's see how our respondents answered the question. Well, the scenario for 2030, we aligned politics, regulators, and industry behind one clear plan, very much aligned with the panel conversation, the discussion here we had at the panel. Thank you so much for everybody who responded to the poll, and thank you very much to our panelists for the very honest, frank remarks they shared with us. Big applause. Thank you.